Hello and welcome to the Self-Recording Band podcast. I'm your host, Benedict Hein. If you are new to the show, welcome. So glad to have you. If you're already a listener, thank you so much. Glad you're coming back and you're hanging out with us again. Please know that this is also available on YouTube if you're discovering this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or some other podcast app, and vice versa. In this case, this particular episode, you might want to check out the YouTube version because this is our live interview from Studioszene 2023 that we had with Jaycen Joshua. So this is very exciting, and the experience will probably be better on YouTube in this case. Yeah, as always, I'm not alone here. I'm doing this with my friend and co-host who just came back from Germany. Hello, Malcom. How are you?
Hey, Benny. I'm good, man. I'm excited about this one because I still can't really believe we got to chat with Jaycen Joshua. That's
incredible,
so
right?
Insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're not familiar with who Jaycen Joshua is, you've heard so much of his work and you just have no idea. Yeah. It was at 15 or 16 Grammys. I can't even remember.
Something like that.
And countless more nominations on top of that. And he's done like Beyonce, Rihanna, Justin Bieber,
Michael Jackson,
Michael Jackson.
Yeah, it's insane. Just
so
insane.
Crazy.
Usually I don't like to play favorites, but I have to say that this is probably one of my favorite conversations we've had so far on the podcast. I just have to say this was very, very fun and also educational for us because it's a little outside of what we usually do. You know, we primarily work in rock and all kinds of guitar music, and Jaycen knows that as well, just for the record. Like he's known as the hip-hop R&B guy, but he definitely also knows rock. But still, primarily what he works on is not really what we do, and so we are students in this case as well, and we are always interested in looking to other genres and learning from the specialists there, so we can take their approaches and apply their techniques and everything they do to what we do over here. And I think so many artists these days are blending genres, and it's really important to be open and constantly build new skills outside of your comfort zone. And this was a perfect opportunity for us to meet Jaycen and ask him all kinds of questions, and just to also learn about how things work at that level is fascinating. I mean, we've been doing it for a while. We've worked on professional records before. We've been to big studios, all of that. But his level is different, and there's only really a handful of people in the world who operate at this level. It doesn't get any bigger than this, right?
So, like when he does a mix, there's millions of dollars behind it. And
yes.
I'm not saying he's charging $1 million, no. But like there's the scope of how much is going into these productions and the marketing behind it, and that artist is just beyond what we can imagine. So, I mean, we get into it in the episode, but there's I think a lot of people misconceive success with thinking it's going to be less pressure because you're just like, everything you touch is gold, but the stakes are way, way higher.
Yeah,
so that's fascinating.
They are, for sure. By the way, that, as I said, this happened at Studioszene 2023. If you want to be there next time, please save the date, October 22nd to 24th. 2024, so October 22nd to October 24th. It's going to happen again. You want to be there, get your tickets. I don't know who's going to be there next year yet, but it's going to be just as exciting. It's going to be even better than this year. And so, as you can tell by our conversation with Jaycen Joshua, they've got some heavy hitters. And if you want to be around those people, ask them your questions, and just be a part of that. You want to go there for sure.
Yeah, we might have got some off the record hints at who's going to be there next year, and it's exciting.
Yeah, exactly, totally. All right, so yeah, Jaycen, we asked him questions about the revision process in major projects. I think there was also an audience question about this because there was an actual live audience there, which was very cool for us too. We've never done that before. We've asked them things like, are the most successful artists also recording themselves, or is it all like big fancy studios all the time? Interesting answer there as well. Then we also, as you said, Malcom, there's a lot on the line here. It's about a lot of money and big projects. So we also wanted to know if he's playing it safe or if he's taking chances still, in these sort of situations. Great answer there as well. So yeah, there's a lot to learn from Jaycen Joshua, and also was just a cool, inspiring conversation. I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, couldn't be a nicer guy. And thank you, Jaycen, for your time. And I hope you enjoy this episode.
Totally. Before we finally dive into it, one more thing. If you are not already part of our little world here, like our little ecosystem at the Self-Recording Band, you want to get in now because we have a Facebook community, we have an email list, we have a coaching program. There's various ways to become part of that community. And you want to do it now because there's exciting things we're working on right now. It's only getting better. It's growing all the time. We can't tell you anything specific yet, but it definitely didn't hurt to be at this event and meet some cool people. And yeah, you're going to benefit from that in some way, shape, or form. And now's the time to get in. If you don't want to miss out, if you want to see what's coming there, please go to the description here below this video or the podcast show notes and join us. All right, here's our conversation with Jaycen Joshua. All right, hello and welcome to the Self-Recording Band podcast. I am your host, Benedikt Hein. We are here once again streaming live from the Studioszene event, Studioszene here in Hamburg. We're at the Studioszene Sofa. The guys at Sound and Recording, the people of Sound and Recording, let us use this sofa for 3 days, which is great. And yeah, that one, pretty comfy. And yeah, so as always, I'm here with my friend and co-host, Malcom Owen Flood.
Hello, everyone.
And today we are joined by Jaycen Joshua. Hello.
Thank you.
Yeah. If you don't know Jaycen, I mean, you probably know, but if you don't know, he's about like as big as it gets when it comes to mix engineers these days, I think. If you look at his credit list, it's massive. Think of name 10 artists in the 10 big artists you can think of in like pop, R&B, hip hop, any of these genres, and there's a high chance that he's worked with them. So it's very cool to have you here, and we have a ton of questions, and I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you. I love being here.
Yeah, awesome. So the first question, Jaycen, is, or my first question would be, we are, as you know, the podcast is called the Self-Recording Band, so we work a lot with our coaching program and our audience are a lot of people who record themselves, who are DIY people. So for someone at your level, do you still ever get to work on like self-recorded stuff, or do big artists these days sometimes record themselves at home? Is that something you ever deal with?
I would say about out of every 100 times I go into the studio, maybe one time out of that 100 will be a recording session where the person involved with the mix would want to do an overdub or recut a vocal or something like that. But once you it's kind of weird. Once you are in a certain section of the engineering world, you kind of get lost in that. So for 15 years, I've done nothing but mix. My predecessor, Dave Pensato, I remember doing something for him, putting a patch in or whatever, and he didn't know how to do it. And I was saying to myself, this is Dave Pensato. How does he not know how to patch in some outboard gear real quick or what have you? And you realize once you take your focus off of something and you don't do it for a while, you become really bad at it.
Yeah.
So I always tell my clients, if they want me to ever record their vocal, they're going to get a great sounding vocal. It just might take some time.
Yeah. Yeah. And in terms of like being sent something that has been self-recorded, that's what I mean. Like when people send, record themselves and send it over to you.
That's 90% of the mixes now.
Oh, really?
I would say, yeah, a lot of the a lot of the upper echelon clients are buying their own studios now. So whether they have their own studio in their house or they have their own studio somewhere else, they're pretty much, self-contained. But a lot of the newer artists are understanding the value of saving money or keeping the money for their studio time. So basically they're buying their own equipment and recording them themselves in the hotel studio. Yeah. I've seen, I've been in with clients where they'll have the big studio with the big microphones and the engineer and everything's ready to go. And you see them in the ISO booth with their engineer and their mic that they're used to, bypassing the full studio. So yeah, I mean, right. It's now really getting into a more personal space when it comes to the recording of projects. I think we see this with the bigger studios closing, that a lot of, especially in rock, a lot of the especially everything except rock, a lot of the clients and artists are preferring to record themselves.
Wow. Okay, now that's interesting. And is there any common thing you have to struggle with, or is it
shitty vocals?
I was thinking,
because they don't. I mean, you have to understand, technology has put people who, I mean, back in the day, to become an engineer, you really had to know your stuff. You need to know, the room, the board, how to record, how to get a great sound. But now with, the invention of Pro Tools and all these other great software programs, anyone as a novice can start and record themselves. If you have a little bit of know-how, go on YouTube and figure it out. But there's an art to it that hasn't been taught. So that art is being lost in a vocal. I mean, I remember just 10 years ago, you would turn up a fader and the vocal would almost sound completely mixed because the person who recorded it has an ear and gave you something very, very, very fantastic to start with. Nowadays, we get people who all they want is to get the voice to the recorder.
Right.
And they're not paying attention on what the voice sounds like. So, and then now in hip hop, that actual crunchy, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing sound is now the sound.
It's gotten popular somehow,
It's now the sound. I don't know if you guys remember, maybe in the late 90s, a group called the Wu-Tang Clan in...
Sure.
And they came up with they did everything in their basement, off a 4-track. They didn't care. It was just raw. And then everybody wanted to sound like that for some reason. And that lasted about 9 months, but their sound kind of took over. And that's the same thing with, the newer artists that are coming out now. It's just like, I get mixes and I swear I've done the greatest mix in the world, and they'll come back and say it's too clean. So you really have to, it's a balance. It's like you have to understand that, there's shitty vocals, but now how do I make these shitty vocals have a sound of its own, I guess you could say.
Awesome,
That's
thank you.
fascinating. Yeah, that actually brings us to like the next question that I really was wondering about, and that I think there's this misconception that at your level, everything's perfect and nobody ever asks for a mix revision and you do whatever you want, you can do no wrong. But I actually would imagine that if I actually sit there and think about it, that it's probably the exact opposite, because you probably have more than just one singer saying, hey, my vocal sounds weird. You probably have maybe their A&R involved, or their managers involved. Like, what's going on there?
I'll give you a recent story. Me and my head engineer did a mix on a co-mix on a record that was, I guess you can say, a fan or a person who's been a fan. She had a little, steam or little buzz going, but she wasn't the biggest artist in the world, but she was a super Jaycen Joshua fan. Oh my God, I cannot believe I'm getting you to mix my record. This is going to be the best experience I've ever had in my life. Oh my God, you're the God. Just do whatever you want. I'm like, oh, this is going to be great. So we start the record and we finish it, and we're high-fiving each other, and we're like, oh, this is really dope. I'm happy to give this person who appreciates me so much a wonderful mix. She wrote a letter, probably about 20 pages, on how I ruined her life and the mix. And she could not believe this was me.
You got a restraining order.
Oh my God, it was so disheartening. I'm like, I don't understand what just happened. So she's like, there's something about the rough, and you went so far away from the rough. And then we listened to the rough. I wonder if she's going to figure out, if she ever saw this, she's probably going to figure out who I'm talking about. But we got to hear her mix, and it just, we couldn't understand it. It was distorted.
Right.
I think the LUFs were at -4.
Perfect.
It was just, it was pretty bad. And we matched it perfectly, sent it back to her. She says, I knew it. I knew you were the one to go do it. And it's just like, so you get it. My point is you get this all the time. I mean, we are definitely in the world of technology where we have to worry about demo-itis more than we ever, and we have to respect the demo. But I've just, I've been doing it so long that I only know how to mix one way, and that's just to make the record. I always tell people, I don't mix for the client, I mix for the record. I'm just trying to make the record the best that I possibly be. If I fail, I'm sorry, but just know I'm doing and thinking of everything that I could possibly think of to make this record better. And if you don't like it, I humbly apologize. And I would say right about now, I wouldn't say not like it, but I would say revisions-wise, I would say we would get about 90% of the time we're getting revisions.
Yeah.
So there's maybe out of 100 mixes, maybe 5 will be no changes.
Right. Wow.
But pretty much everything after that is a note.
Yeah.
Or 2.
Yeah. Thank you. That's interesting.
And that's all. That's all of us. I mean, talking to my counterparts and talking to my colleagues and my peers, we're all going through it now. We're all really hot because when you do a mix, you're spending about a day on it, right? And when you're recording the record, it's a process. You have a process where they get the initial idea down maybe, and then, the engineer probably spends weeks upon weeks tweaking, doing his little mix, and then everybody's been listening to it for 2 or 3 months, and then they get to the mix, and everyone's used to I mean, it's just a scientific fact. When you listen to something repetitively, your body gets used to it. So when it hears something different, it goes into fight or flight mode. It's like, what is this? And it's no in between. It's no like, and it could be as simple as a hi-hat being up or too many delays added. But one little thing can throw off the whole mix, and I can't even listen to it past verse 1 because there's a delay. So yeah, you do this for so long, you hear so many different stories. But for the most part, fortunately enough, the other 95% appreciate what we do.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So yesterday we learned that you really enjoy talking about AI.
We're not going to go there.
Just kidding. We're not going to go there. No,
it's not that I don't.
Yeah,
it's
I know.
It's just it's so new. It's like.
Yeah, of course.
I like it. I don't like it. Who knows?
Yeah, just kidding. No, let's get back to mixing because you said something else over there yesterday that I remembered that I wanted to ask you about. You said you're taking chances when you're mixing. Like you're risking things sometimes.
I'm risking the mix.
Yeah, of course. But yeah,
you can lose the mix if you go too far.
Yeah.
I mean,
but you still do it.
Been there. Yeah, but I still
you make the bold decisions. So I was wondering, do you do more of that if it's like a quote unquote like smaller project? Are you like more careful on bigger things?
Great question.
So because you would assume, right, when it is a very massive project, you would play it safe. You don't want to mess it up.
Great question. No, I go fight or flight every mix.
Awesome.
I've been in situations where we'll be at odds where I'm speaking, and I know I'm probably one of the only ones who do this, but I'll tell the clients like, this does not sound good, and I'm willing to take you through the finish line with this, but don't put my name on it.
Right.
Yeah.
I've had that a couple of times. I've had a couple of times where it's like maybe I should walk off the project, and because I always find it fascinating where this is all we do. Yeah. I mean, look at us. You guys came to hear this podcast, sit here, talk shop. We're all like-minded. We all love mixing. This is all we think about. But then you'll have a client come in and he'll have his best friend or his girlfriend there. Be like, what do you think, baby? I think it has too much bass. And you're like, you're really going to listen to the person who's never been in this room or in this environment? Like, this is all I do. Trust me one time. But you after a while, you totally understand that it has nothing to do with you and everything to do with them. And what I mean by that is that you have a situation where you put your heart and soul into something, and if they don't see it the way you see it, it's maybe because they're having a bad day. Yeah. And I would say about 90% of the time, the records that sound different or as different as the rough is because we believe as mixers that rough is not going to work in the marketplace. So if I went to, like, if you go to a doctor and you say to a doctor, my heart, it skips a beat, and the doctor says, take this pill, your heart will be great. Honey, should I take this pill? No, you should try green juice. What, are you going to listen to the? We're the only ones where the girlfriend might overrule us doctors of mixing over here. So
right.
I never take it personal anymore. I used to early in my career. I'd be like, oh, my career's over. They hate my mix. You'll get two. Don't get two in a row. Oh, if you get 2 I don't like your mixes in a row, you just think, oh, I'm the worst. But it's not the case.
Yeah. It's hard not to let it affect you, though. But you just
no. In the beginning, I was because following my mentor, Dave Pensado, he would get devastated. Like if someone critiqued his mix, it was like, no, it's so. I'm like, Dave, what are you talking about?
Right.
But after a while, you start seeing patterns. You're like, oh, okay, I get it. And never take it personal. Just go on to the next mix, because you'll do 100 mixes and 80 of them will be amazing, and 20 of them you might have some, and that's just because those 20 people don't hear the same way. Everyone's ears are different, so you can't take it personal that person doesn't like bass or doesn't like high end or, however you feel the record should be.
Absolutely. Something I feel like I really strongly believe, and like that it makes me willing to make bold choices in a mix that I don't know if the client's going to like it. Like I have no idea, but I'm going to do it because I think, like you said, it's going to be the best choice for the song. Is that mixing is still a creative process, and that you're still adding to the production at a production level. Like if you make something,
and that's actually a great way to put it, because when you do that, that's when you start deserving the point.
Right. Mm-hmm.
When you bring that production value to that producer or to that song or to that record, people start, wow, if we don't go to them, we're not going to get these extra bells and whistles. You know what I mean? I always tell my my assistants, you want to amaze the client to the point where they feel that they can't go nowhere else. And if they did, they wouldn't get the exact same sound, because you're only as good as your last mix. You know what I mean? We have no advertising. There's no commercials for mixers. So, you're only as good as your last mix. So why not try to hit it out of the park?
Yeah, and surprise them.
And then you won't have mixes that are out on the radio that you feel like, I've done this where you have a big record, but you're like, I really don't think this mix is good. Oh. And then you have to post it, and all your peers are going to see it, and you're like, oh my God, I don't want to post this. And I've been doing that lately. I've had some pretty big records come out of late, and I have not posted them because I just haven't appreciated the mix, and it makes it fun. So now it's like, with me, if you go on my page and you see the records that I put up there, it's records that I'm proud of.
Right.
You know what I mean? In the sense of, and I can separate the two. I can always separate, the work that I go into. And then it's finding, and I always tell people, finding like-minded creatives to create with. You'll have somebody come in and you'll listen to a rough, and it's like, I've had this a million times where they'll go be like, the rough is amazing. And I'll say to myself, it's absolutely not. Maybe we should talk about this first, because I'm hearing it in a different way. You just want me to make it a little bit better. I don't think it's even, so those type of early discussions are always best.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting. A pre-production meeting before a mix.
And that's very hard to get.
Yeah, that doesn't happen.
They usually just send it and, hope for you to knock it out the park. And that's another thing. You always got to say to yourself, they came to you for a reason. They want nothing more than to hear something absolutely amazing from you. Mm-hmm. So you can't take it personal that you don't hit it. You just fall back on the aspect of, I tried my best, I did everything I could. Let the chips fall where they may.
Is there anything you do to try and build trust with them so that the next time they come, they give you more leeway in being creative?
I think the trust came early with me with, finding, I always tell people, find your vessel. Find that producer, find that act that truly believes in you. So I had 2 producers, Tricky and Dream, who we did a lot of early stuff with Rihanna, Beyonce, Justin Bieber, Celine Dion. and no, it was like really big pop records. And if you know anything about pop and mixing, there's only a couple guys out there that people go to. And for this young guy to come in, they had to stand up for me. Mm-hmm. And once they stood up for me, no, this is our guy, this is our guy, this is our guy. And then once you have success, now you're the guy.
Right.
So it's finding your vessels that help get your information or get your mixes to, whoever your future clients are going to be. Like, I love that record. And that's where most of my work comes from, is from people listening to records, oh, that's Jay again. I got to go to Jay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's awesome. One of the reasons that I think, one of many reasons, but one of the reasons people come to you for your mixes is also your low end. You're kind of famous for that, at least over here. I don't know if it's the same or if you ever get that, but many people that I talk to, they are raving about the way your low end sounds and how big it is, but also not overpowering. And you probably answered that 1,000 times already, but if there's one thing that you could point to, what is it that makes your low end sound like your low end?
Sidechain compression. Sidechain compression is I can't do it any other way. And my whole thing was I was in a loudness war with Fruity Loops. When Fruity Loops first came out, it was so loud, and their rough mixes were actually killing some of us engineers because.
But wait, how can a DAW be loud? Just so we understand, like.
Well, Fruity Loops soft clipper is amazing, and the first I'll be the first if there's any developers here. The first person who makes the Fruity Loops soft clipper for all the DAWs is going to be the king, because this thing really gets records loud, and a lot of the producers will do their rough mix, and they put the Fruity Loops soft clipper, and I'm talking everything's going through it, vocals, beat, kick drums, 808s, and it would be extremely loud and extremely distorted, but it had something to it. So we had to develop a system where I can get it just as loud, but take away all the stuff, the bad stuff that the soft clipper added, bring the dynamics back, bring the transients back, so on and so forth. So once we created this template or this system, I realized early, not only by trim tooling what am I supposed to say? Trim tooling the 808 compression, sidechain compression. I also use now Soothe, which I'll take the kick drum, have the kick drum go feed the Soothe sidechain compressor, and every time the kick hits, the bass will drop out. And the reason why Soothe is so good is because it follows the envelope of the kick. So if the kick, it's not taking the whole thing down, it's just taking the energy of where the kick is coming in. So you don't even hear the 808 drop out. You just hear the kick come in and the 808 sustain all the way through. So it got me about 2 to 3 more dB of headroom. So I would say sidechain compression is absolutely the key to victory for me, for my low end, because I like a very sustained, in your face, low end that makes people feel warm. I'm a hi-fi guy. I like the lowest of lows. I like the highest of highs. And with sidechain compression, it really got me to have that low end that I was looking for.
Thank you. That's a great answer. Yeah. Great answer. Does your mix bus have also anything to do with it? Like for example, the God particle?
Yeah, the God particle is remarkable in the sense of its control of the entire frequency spectrum with this multi-band compressor, but especially in the low end. It was something that we really harped on. It took us a minute to figure out, but if it's not the God particle, I would say it's going to be pretty hard to get to the -7, -6 luff area and still sound dynamic without multi-band compression on your tube bus.
Yeah.
So with the God particle having the multi-band compression on the tube bus and really focused on the control of the low end and keeping that last, I'll tell you a quick funny story. I was working with Murder Beats, and big time producer, all the Drake stuff, so on and so forth.
He's got a plug-in with Slate, I think, right? The Murder Melodies thing?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. So he came in, and he was, a person like, I love the mix, but I'm not feeling the low end, Jay. And I'm like, telling someone like me that you're not feeling the low end is like the world's coming to an end. Like, no low end, what are you talking about? And so I go up on the big boys, and I'm like, what are you talking about? We're killing yours. He's like, yeah, you are, but you're not killing it in these. And I'm like, well, what do you mean in these? He's like, I'm listening to it on my headphones. And he had his headphones. It was the weirdest thing. I'm listening to the mix, and I turn behind, and he has his headphones on, listening to the mix on his headphones. And I'm like, but you can. I'm like, never mind. That's another story. So the way it works is that 20 and 30 hertz that I would roll away, these headphones would make it up in its synthesized based way where you can hear more low end if that 20 and 30 hertz wasn't rolled out. So we had to figure out a way of how do I keep that 20 and 30 hertz without getting the wobbles and the shakes and all the other stuff that it brings to it. So I think that was one of the eureka moments with the God particle.
Very interesting. Thank you. Is it always the God particle on your mix bus?
Yeah, I never. Since the first day we hit that eureka button where we finally figured the God particle out, I think it's been like 3 years now.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And so, from what you're saying, I get that. Do you do the mastering yourself then, or do you deliver mixes that are that loud?
Why
like
not? Because we're like we're. I mean, a lot of people tend to not realize that most mix engineers are really good mastering engineers as well, because they know what they want the record to sound like. And before, it was kind of like a dark art of mastering. Like, we knew what to do, but we really didn't know what to do. But over the years, with the mastering plugins and the suites, you kind of started teaching yourself, and people started talking, and you realized, like, wow, it's really just taking a step back from your mix and coming back to it and figuring out how to make it better. And with the tools that we have today, I just don't see why most mix engineers don't master their stuff.
Yeah.
And that's no disrespect to the mastering, because there's some mastering engineers whose ears are so good that you really like, you know what, I'm not going to them because of what they know, because I can do what they know. I'm going to them because I feel that their ear is helping my record. And I have a couple people that are like that when I need to take a step away, or if I'm feeling like there's something missing. I love the mix, I don't know what it is. Let me see what their interpretation on the master is. But I would say about right now, 90% of the time I master my own records.
You can always do both too, right? Like my master, my buddy's master. Which one's better? That's all that matters.
What's the funny thing is now the mastering engineers are becoming like mix engineers, where they're asking for your ref. The one that you sent the clients first. Hey, can you send me that? You never got that. They never used to ask for that. Now they're like, can we get your bounce?
And if you send it off to external mastering engineers, do you deliver it that loud still? Like, do you send the -6, -7, or do you turn the God particle or last part of the chain down for that?
I respect the art. I'm going to say my peers, I know this for a fact, my peers don't. They send it as hot as it possibly can. You do what you need to do. Just either lay it in and don't touch it, or put a little whatever you think you need to do to it. But with me, I'm a little bit more respectful. If my client is really asking me to send it to mastering, I'm not going to be the guy that's going to not send it. So all I do is take the limiter off the God particle. It goes down about 5 dB, and hope for the best.
Does it ever go wrong?
Always.
No.
Awesome.
No, that's the thing. It's like, I mean, we're all good mixers. We're all good engineers. And if you trust your ears, or if you have the complete confidence in your ears, why would you send it to anywhere else? It makes no sense. But like I said, sometimes you need to take a step back, and sometimes certain ears are better than yours when it comes to a 2-track. But for the most part, though, I'm 90% of the time trying to master. Well, 100% of the time trying to master my own stuff.
Right. Yeah.
So. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was to say, if you're not happy, why are you calling it done, I guess, right? So.
Yeah, that's what I never understood, especially with, the limiters. Like, no one's sending out, I don't know who's doing that anymore, sending out a mix without a limiter on it. Like, oh, man, you got to listen to it with the vibe, man. Just turn it up. Like, no, dude. If your shit's not hot, your shit's not going to get picked up as the mix. So I highly suggest whenever you send your mix out, you send it as hot as, commercially possible.
Yeah, totally. Thank you. So before we wrap it up here, because I know you have to be in there for the sound check really soon, right? And I want to respect your time. So does anyone here have questions for Jaycen in the audience? Because we have a wonderful live audience as well here, which I appreciate. Anyone has questions for Jaycen Joshua?
No questions. Amazing. It's the first time I've ever sat in the audience without one question.
Somebody's got one.
No.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
There we go.
Actually, yes, but just a short one. Going back to the mixing for the biggest of the big clients and the revisions of that, is there a difference in the number of revisions and the kind of revisions that you get from like great teams versus independent people?
Any given BTS record might have 50 revisions or more.
50?
50. 5-0.
What?
Yeah, it's you have to understand, you're in a day and age where, you know, people, they know what they want. If it's a hi-hat down 0.5 dB, no, oh, I'm sorry, 0.2 now. that's their given birthright, man. They paid for the mix, but yeah, it doesn't matter. I think the best way to give you an average is the average mix for me is like version 4 or 5. And in each version, we're probably thinking about maybe 5 to 10 notes. So people, and it kind of affects you as a mixer because you're like, you say to yourself, all that extra shit that you want to do, maybe I shouldn't do it. Maybe I should wait because I'm about to get 50, 100 notes and then maybe make a suggestion. Or you can do what my mentor does, which I don't understand, but he takes the time and does it. He'll send out 2 versions.
Oh.
Here's your version, cool down, and here's this is where I think it needs to go. You know, adding drops, you know, stuff like that just gives excitement and movement to a record. You know, taking out a part here because it clutters because a lot of people don't understand when you work with music today, no one's making music together. The producer will make the beat, send it to the top liner. The top liner will write the record, not paying attention to what the producer wrote. And then the producer, all he cares about is the beat. And then he'll have a melody line that's going over the top line or a synth going over the top line. You're like, let me mute that. And the producer will be like, what the fuck are you doing? That's my shine. And I'm like, you're stepping over the lead vocal. No one's coming in. No one's, you know, paying money to hear your synth, unless it was like a huge melody. But you know, it's like I said, it doesn't. Like most newer clients, they're afraid to give you notes. But the bigger clients, oh. I remember one time we got to Mike, what's the big version that we got to with that one record, like version 59, the BTS record. So think about it. You're in the 40s. After 5, you probably don't even know what the record sounds like anymore. It's a totally different record. So then that's the main reason why I have all my assistants do my changes. Yeah. Because it's like I don't want to see my baby ruined.
It's too much. It's too much.
Too much.
Awesome. Thank you. Any more questions?
There it is.
Use this chance, Nick.
Oh, we got way.
Can you explain something about your template, like the thought process behind it, and why you build like the way it is?
Well, my template is very, very OCD. It's color coordinated. It's basically put together so I can get through a mix and get all the bullshit out of the way as fast as I can so I can become extremely creative very, 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 very quickly. We all know, we've all done mixes where it takes us, 2 or 3 hours just to get the mix prepped, get the fades in, get all the clicks out, blah, blah, blah. By the time we start mixing, we hate the record. So I came up with a system where it's, relatively simple. My assistant set up the record so when I bring it up, it sounds exactly like the rough. But my template is so I can isolate each individual parts of the record and really attack them like I'm mixing them individually. So what I mean by that is like I'll have the drums with the drum bus. So now I can mix and master the drums before it even gets to the 2-bus, so the 2-bus doesn't have to do anything. I have my high-end perks, same thing. I have my synths and my keyboards, and then I have my sound effects and vocal effects. So with all that being said, I like to mix and master before I get to the 2-bus. I treat the vocals like a mix and master. So when I get to the 2-bus, it's not doing anything. So when we are at -7, -6 LUFS, it still feels like it's open, like it's at -14, -15. So I just like to isolate each individual section. And if you go into the masterclass next, I'll get very, very in depth with that.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Go check out that masterclass. Obviously, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, do we? I don't know.
I think we got to wrap it up.
We got to wrap it up.
On time,
but gotta go in there for the sound check.
Thank you guys, man. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you guys for listening live. If you watch the stream, thank you for listening on the podcast. If you watch this after the fact, and of course, thank you guys for being here live.
Thank you all.
Joining us. So a big round of applause for Mr. Jaycen Joshua.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Well done, guys.